Welcome to Get the Facts, the program that provides you with information on government policies and initiatives. I'm Theodore Henry. When one thinks of the Bureau of Gender Affairs, the first thing that comes to mind is that it focuses on women's issues. But is that what the agency is all about, or is that all the agency is about? Well, here to tell us more about the role of the Bureau is Principal Director for Gender Affairs in the Ministry of Culture, Gender, Entertainment and Sport, Sharon Coburn Robinson. Welcome to the program, Lady Coburn Robinson.
Thank you, Theodore.
All right, let's jump right into getting the facts. Now, what is the mandate of the BGA?
All right. So essentially, I heard you say that the Bureau is responsible to make sure that women and men experience development. Okay. Is that what you said? Well,
I was wondering, is it just about women's issues, or?
It's women and men.
Okay.
And it's on a basis of equality. So as you're aware, development is not something that we all experience in a homogeneous way. Okay. And so we have to ensure the gender differential. And that simply, you look puzzled. It simply means...
No, you're blowing my mind.
As a male, you experience gender in a different way, and you experience development in a different way from women.
Right.
And so the programs that we roll out, or activities, or plans, or projects are all geared towards making sure that you experience it in the way that best suits your needs. That's what gender differential means.
Right.
Making sure it matches what you require based on your contextual realities. And that's for development of human capital, making sure that all parties experience what is required and in a way that is equitable and with equality.
I find that fantastic. And when you said gender differential, I was thinking like, so not one size fits all.
Absolutely.
But okay. So how does the agency help to ensure this sort of gender parity in Jamaica? Especially, as you said, we're in different places. We experience it in different ways.
Absolutely. So we do that in collaboration and partnership with a number of key stakeholders. So we have specific programs that we focus on naturally because of the fact that we have a gender mainstreaming mandate. And that says making sure that men and women, boys and girls are included in development in whatever plans, programs, policies, projects, whatever operational plans you're rolling out. You ensure that the benefit is equitable and that it is so resourced, whatever your program that you're doing, that nobody squeals discrimination, nobody squeals victimization, nobody is accusing anyone of sexual harassment or feeling that there is some amount of bias in the workplace. And which, even if it's not in the workplace, even if it's a community space, members of the community ought to benefit equally from all materials, resources, services, benefits that are available on a basis of equality, simply because the gender policy states that, or National Policy for Gender Equality, as well as the Vision 2030, making sure that all parties benefit equally. So we are all on that road, on that path to development.
Ah, wonderful, wonderful. I do have to ask, have you faced any challenges with this idea of mainstreaming gender and parity?
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. We do get some pushback, Theodore, in some spaces, because in some instances when we go to do sensitization, persons would ask, are you speaking about women's issues only? Are you focusing on making sure that women are empowered?
Right.
And so we have to say, absolutely not. We are looking at women's empowerment as well as male empowerment, so much so that we have now a male empowerment unit. And that male empowerment unit focuses on issues relating to men and health, men and behaviors that are health-seeking. You know, there are times when some men are afraid to do prostate cancer screening.
Right.
And they might not want to go to the health center for a number of reasons. But we find that they'll come to a fair. And if they come to a domino tournament, for example, they'll talk about issues. Or if they go to the barber shop.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow.
So we try to meet them where they would go normally. And then we have the conversations
so it's not
where
just
they can.
Man up and do it.
No. It's not mandatory, but it's strongly encouraged. And we find that when persons get to it naturally, willingly, on their own, it makes such a world of difference than when you actually force them to get there.
So the philosophy, I'm hearing this come out, the philosophy is all rise.
All rise.
None left behind.
None left behind.
We're not trying to say, okay, it's woman time now. We're not trying to say, oh, it's man time now. It's everybody's time.
Absolutely. That's what, when you talked about gender parity, that's what it speaks to. Making sure that we pull everybody along as required with no holds barred in terms of saying you can get this, but you are not. So it's a level playing field, making sure that all parties, whatever you bring to the table, we enhance that. And if you are short on something, there's a gap, there's a deficit, we have that responsibility to work with entities and international development partners to source what is required to fix those gaps.
Understood. Now, pardon me, I know we're saying parity, but we so rarely hear about men when it comes to gender issues.
Yeah.
Now, I recognize that the BGA has a men's desk.
Yes.
Tell us a little bit about that.
So that men's desk has developed from 2009 when it was started to a space that I spoke about earlier, a male empowerment space.
All right.
And that male empowerment space has a network, a robust network of males who are a part of the conversation and who come to sessions that we have and coming up with ideas. Just last Friday, I had a meeting of the male network and we talked about ideas. So in May we discussed and planned finally put the final touches on the father. What is it? Father's Award, Outstanding Father's Award. This is an annual thing we started in 2019.
An award ceremony.
Yes, and we had for the first time 40-odd men who we honored, and they were so excited. So we had to make space for them to bring their family members, a spouse or a significant other, and a child or 2 children, just to see them receive their award. Because a lot of times men think that they are not recognized and appreciated enough, and compare themselves to women to say when it's Mother's Day, you know, and Valentine's Day, men, you know, men have to do stuff for women, and women feel special. So we wanted to do the same thing for them, this kind of pampering and special recognition, so that they would understand that we do appreciate their contribution.
This is fantastic stuff. I love that we're having this conversation. We are going to continue speaking more about research and policy development, but a break is coming up. So please don't go anywhere. We're discussing the mandate of the Bureau of Gender Affairs. Please stay with us.
Shelby, I want to you. I make it look like you have a whole world on for your shoulders, Samasa.
Ashley, I'm tired. Every day the same thing and I can't take this no more.
And what happened now?
No, my boss, man. Every day I have me assign some documents I'm not supposed to assign for with some big money. And when I say, sir, I'm not supposed to assign for them here, I'm going to say, you want a job or what?
But see, report him. You hear what I say, girl? Report him to your designated officer or the Complaints and Protected Disclosures Unit at the Integrity Commission. And guess what? Don't worry yourself. The information that you give will be kept confidential.
You sure?
Girl, me positive. Under the Protected Disclosures Act, you can make a report as an employee, and once it is made in good faith, then your boss really and truly can't do nothing about it. And if you don't want to call, you can make an anonymous complaint under the Integrity Commission Act of 2017 by simply downloading and sending in a report in proprietary form from the Commission's website. Just create one email address with no identity attached, so if they have follow-up questions, they can contact you. But sis, make sure that the report you bring is true and you don't have no bad intentions.
Okay, me I go do it.
If you or someone you know has experienced or observed matters involving corruption, improper conduct, or impropriety within the workplace, you're being encouraged to file a report with the Integrity Commission by calling their anti-corruption hotline at 876-926-0001 or emailing cpd@integrity.gov.jm. The Integrity Commission, united against corruption.
Welcome back to Get the Facts. We're continuing our discussion on the role and the functions of the Bureau of Gender Affairs to employers and institution heads. Our guest is Principal Director of the Bureau of Gender Affairs, Sharon Coburn Robinson. Lady Robinson, let's keep going with getting some of these facts. Now, the Bureau has a public education campaign and a training function as a part of their mandate. Right. And how have you found the reception to those efforts?
Good question, Theodore. So the gender, one of the main campaigns that we have now is no excuse for abuse. Mm-hmm. And we had to develop that because we found that the statistics were alarming in terms of the number of persons who are reporting
I've seen that one. I've seen that one.
Gender-based violence. You've seen that.
In the billboard in
Yes,
Halfway Tree, for example. Right.
Yes, and we've ramped that up at the community level because we recognize that sometimes you can't plan for these things in terms of you might have done a robust sensitization session with a number of persons coming, and the next morning you hear that somebody there's a death suicide, murder suicide, or a child was killed, or a child was kidnapped, a young man was abducted. It's just bizarre when you hear that because you know definitely that we have been trying, we've been working, and the idea is just to get that mindset where persons recognize that it is not okay to harass somebody, it is not okay to violate somebody, and all of us have rights. And so you don't have any right to violate somebody. You have a right to go to somebody's house and plunder and kill the persons and leave the children without parents. It's just not right.
Do you think that you're up against culture?
Absolutely. Absolutely. We have this thing called the conspiracy of silence, Theodore, where some persons at the community level know about what is happening. They see and they know and they're aware, but they're afraid to speak because of that culture that says inform of the dead. And they feel if they talk about it, then they are going to be stigmatized and they might lose their lives. They might be reprisals. They have to leave the community. Right. And so we encourage persons to disclose the information in a confidential way so that nobody has to know that you've shared that information. But if you think of the rationale behind it, if you share that information, you could cause one less person or one less family to suffer. Right. So you share the information simply because you're also saving your own life and the lives of your family members.
So the idea here, the thrust here is essentially to blanket these areas with this information.
Absolutely.
But also make the avenues available for people and let them know where they are.
Certainly. So the research has given us ideas on the hotspots and the communities that are more prone to have gender-based violence. So once we know that this is so, earlier we were a part of it's a ICVIS. It's a information. What was it? Integrated Crime and Violence Information System, ICVIS. Right. And that had to do with a repository of data that speaks to how violence is committed in different communities, and crime observatory. That was it. It was a crime observatory, and then the information was collected. We had to do the validation sessions. Once we have that information, we know these are the spots that are more prone to violence, and the times when it happens. In the summer, around the time you have Valentine's Week, that week of Safer Sex Week, which they call Safer Sex Week deliberately because we find that a lot of sex takes place in that week because it's Valentine's Day and that's Love Month and Love Week and so on. And when children are away from school in Christmas, Easter, those are the hotspot periods, times and so on, and the spaces. Once we know that, then the strategies would be how can we penetrate those communities with information and have the community buy into it as well so that they're also protecting those members of the community. Buy in.
I'm going to switch gears here a little bit. The BGA does research, policy development, also project planning and monitoring. Could you give us a brief rundown of what you do in that regard?
Exciting work, Theodore. So everything links to something else. So the research is done primarily to unearth what is actually out there. What are the main issues?
Which you spoke to a while ago.
The issues that are presenting. So once you get that information in your research, then you can now say, how can we develop plans and programs? For example, or NSAP. You might have heard the expression NSAP or NSAP GBV. Yes. It's a broad, very ambitious national strategic action plan to eliminate gender-based violence in Jamaica. A long name. We call it NSAP GBV for short. And that NSAP told us that gender-based violence is endemic and it is something that's a violation of human rights. Endemic.
Help us.
Endemic meaning it's across Jamaica. It's not just in spots. It's across Jamaica. It's just that it's more pronounced in some communities than others. And sometimes there's an underreporting of the cases because, again, the informal culture and the conspiracy of silence and so on. But once persons get the awareness, and what we also have found is that community policing helps. So when we hold hands with the police and do a lot of work with the police, just go into the communities and do the conversations with them. Like we call it pound the corner reasoning, just going to and having little brochures, flyers and stuff. I had one earlier where you just talk to persons about, what is domestic violence? Who are the victims and how can you prevent yourself from getting it and from becoming a victim of domestic violence? And if it happens, what are the forms of redress and how do you protect somebody else? How do you report it, for example, if it's a family member? And the final thing I want to say here is that the project now would be a short-term fix or a strategy to develop something that allows us. So, for example, I talk about the RPP. That's an acronym for Refocus Perpetrator Program. And that is something, that came out of our NSAP, which states that the NSAP has 3 levels. The victim, when the person is in harm's way, then a survivor when you have been reformed and assisted to become
Right.
somebody of influence, so you can now help others.
Oh,
The
okay.
second layer would be the victims, the witnesses.
Right.
Witnesses, that's, it could be a child, or it could be a family member, or it could be a bystander. And the third level would be the perpetrators. So we spend more time on the other two, victims, survivors, and witnesses, and less on the perpetrators. And then we found out that the perpetrators were not going anywhere, and the cases kept increasing. And so we were forced to come up with a program that says, how do you grab these, not physically, how do you get their attention,
Right.
they are, the perpetrators, and have a conversation with them about why would you see yourself as a perpetrator? Why do you want to carry out an act of crime, an act of violence against somebody? Is it something that happened to you in your early childhood that wasn't addressed? Are you yourself a victim now, have become a perpetrator? And that was so telling. We partnered with JAMHAN, Jamaica Mental Advocacy Network, and we did for the very first time, Theodore, a biopsychosocial assessment. It sounds fancy. It simply means just talk to the persons
Right.
and conduct a little scientific test to see what's wrong with the head, if that's a problem, or what are the factors that have caused you to become a perpetrator.
It's fascinating. It's fascinating what you have just described, because research and policy development sounds very high level. Sounds very up there.
Yeah.
Not necessarily something that concerns me, but
Right.
what you have said is that the BGA is taking the research and connecting it into actionable
Absolutely.
biopsychosocial
assessment.
assessment.
Yeah.
Just talking to people.
Yes.
All right, okay. And you covered a bit of project planning and monitoring as well. I'm curious, what other projects are they?
Oh, so we have
Just
COPE.
very briefly, we're
Yes,
almost out of time.
We have COPE. COPE is just what it says. We assist community members in groups, and different groups at community level who are doing fantastic community work but need a seed grant and need to be boosted in terms of technical capacity and marketing, niche marketing, and so on.
Right.
And so community outreach for partnership through empowerment. At this point, we have 18 partners. We started off with 8 in 2019, July 26, I will not forget it.
Right.
And we started off with 8 partners. Now we have doubled and more than
Doubled and
doubled.
toops, yeah.
18, yes. And each group has a different focus and a different function. And we give them funds every month, a little grant that they don't have to repay, and that allows them to be able to do fantastic work.
Wonderful, wonderful. One thing that I'm getting coming out of all of this is that the BGA is on the ground talking to people and working with and for people.
Absolutely.
Thank you so much, Lady Coburn Robinson. This has been Get the Facts. Our guest was Principal Director of Agenda Affairs in the Ministry of Culture, Gender, Entertainment and Sport, Sharon Coburn Robinson. Thank you for watching, and until next time, I'm Theodore Henry. Take good care.